So welcome to the Node.js Node API team meeting for September 10th, 2021. We will follow our standard approach of looking at the issues tagged from Milestone 11. Before we do that, does anybody have any announcements they'd like to make?
Yes, I have. Node API headers has been published on NPM. So yeah, if you want to use it, you can from NPM now. And yeah, I'm starting to work at building tool that use CMake.js, CMake, that use an API, Node API headers. So yeah, I hope to give you good news in a few weeks.
Okay, that sounds great.
That. Yeah.
That would let people basically build add-ons without using Node itself, right?
Yeah. This is my purpose. Yes.
Right, and so if there were other implementations of Node API, you could then build once without tied to a runtime, and then run them with any of the ones that supported that. That'll be really neat to see.
Okay.
Okay. Any other announcements? If not, let's move on to the things. I will share my screen. So the first one was the review on Node serial port. I know a few people were looking at that. Last time it was, comments being made, things being moved forward. I don't know if there's any updates, things to discuss on that one this week.
I have not had
checked if anyone's
to look at this since their last pushes. I believe they've updated it to add async worker or something, but I haven't had any chance to look at it since then.
Okay, so I guess just continuing to work away, and as we find time to comment and stuff, help them move forward on that. Sounds good. Okay, so let's then flip over to the stale issues. So there's this one, 9.1.12, which was right. So I know there's an update from Jack, at least on that front. Right, you're on mute, Jack, if you're talking.
Yeah, I merged the PR into a no core, allowing us to create a reference on symbol types. So with this, I think we can probably implement some like check handlings from our Node API side, Addon API side, if possible.
Right, now that one, do we need, I'm just trying to think of like versions in terms of like that being backported, or is there a way we can, I guess we could enable it for a later version of like later versions of Node?
Right, that's what I was just thinking about, because we would need to do a release for Node API for a new version that says, in this version, we've lifted the restriction on symbol references. And then in that version, we can add version guards in Node Addon API to take care of this issue, especially depending on the Node API version.
Right, like we don't necessarily want to, we almost need like a runtime check, I think, right? Like unless we're going to backport it to all the LTS versions, we would want like a runtime check that says, am I running with a version of Node that allows this? Okay, do this behavior. Otherwise, do what we used to do, kind of thing.
You mean backporting the reference lifting to other versions of Node as well?
Right, like that we can probably do to, like, say 14. But I guess it's like, is there a way, I'm wondering if like, rather than waiting for backports and things to go end of life, is there a way we can dynamically check and then put it into Node API like the current version, but have it, go ahead.
We could always we could always just try to do it, and if we get like an API invalid argument, then we know that it's because this is not such a version.
Okay,
That's one way to
that
try.
makes sense. So I'm just trying to find.
Is it worthwhile to backport this though?
I think for 14 would be 12 is kind of like critical fixes and security things. So it would be like, if we think it's really, really important, we could, but there's only so many 12 releases and we'd have to make the case. And so
I see.
it's always, I don't know, like this one, I'm not sure. Some of the other ones we've like said, well, it will help adoption of any Node API or a particular feature. The question would be like, how much benefit would there be versus just waiting for the old versions to die off for to get it in every case?
So taking Gabriel's thought of like just trying it, and if you get invalid arg, then you know you can't do it. So the solution that we have thought of now that we can reference symbols is the one where if there's an error and it's a primitive, we would take the native value of the primitive and then store it and then rewrap it to give it back. Is that what we were gonna do?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, for primitive values, just
right.
Make a copy.
So then if we take the approach where, you know, for primitive values, we just do the wrapping, and then for everything else, we would try to create the reference, which would be functions, objects, and symbols. Then the symbol would give an invalid arg. Then what would we end up doing in that case?
Oh, I see what you mean.
I mean, what happens today? Because this was around error reporting, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so it wouldn't be fixed.
Yeah, because we would end up like it. We would end up having to lose the symbol, basically, if they try this in a version where we can't reference it.
Right.
We can either lose the symbol and then just like it would just handle gracefully or do we just continue to crash? I mean, I don't know.
Today, what would happen?
Today it would be a crash if you throw a primitive. And that's what the original issue is,
right.
I think, if you just go back to the previous issue.
Right. This one?
Yes. And scroll just a little down. I think he just gives an example where he throws a string. Yeah, throw foobar. And I guess because we tried to create a reference on what they're throwing.
Right.
And that won't work. So now what we have to do is do this wrapping if it's a normal primitive.
Yep.
Or create a reference if it's not.
You know,
and then
this is a pretty small case, right? Trying to throw a symbol, right?
I would agree.
Most things, and it will start working with symbols as soon as this change permeates, right? So, you know, we can document a caveat and say that, as of Node.js version, whatever the next release will be, it will work. But until then, so it's poised to start working at some point, and we still have work to do to implement change. Or, you store primitive, etc., etc. So that still work and still provides a lot of value, right?
Instead of a crash, Does it like, is there anything useful we could do in terms of like taking the symbol and converting it to something else we could throw? Or is that gonna mess things up so much that it's not worth it? Like you basically don't get the exception you threw, you get something else, which,
You would end up getting something else.
right,
Because you would throw a symbol and then we could like stringify it, but then you wouldn't be able to compare it to what you threw.
right,
Where you could be able to do it with everything else, with all of the primitives and all of the references except symbol.
right. I
And I
guess it's,
don't,
go ahead.
and I think, I mean, it would be better to not crash, but I don't know what we would end up throwing.
Right, and the question is it gonna be worse if it works on some versions of Node and not others versus just not working at all, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I could be swayed either way. Well, I mean, at least what we can start the implementation of this primitive wrapping and the symbol thing. And I think maybe we can continue to discuss what to do in this case.
We could start it out by like being an opt-in thing where like the developer needs to basically opt in and understand that, say, symbol isn't going to be comparable. You know, it may not be comparable. And then once it actually works the you know, the same across all of them, we could make that the default.
I see. Right.
That's just a thought, because then the developers actually said, oh, well, maybe they run into this problem. They say, okay, well, how do I fix that? And they, you know, look at the thing, and that's where we could clearly document, like, here's the limitation, choose to do it if you want to.
So the behavior would be you can opt in for some stringification of the symbol so that it would continue to not crash.
Right.
Or you don't opt in and you get a crash.
Yeah, that would be my thinking, right? Like, it's basically same as today. It's in your face kind of thing. Like, so if I think it would be that, like, I think it should be that if you don't opt in and you use a symbol, we will crash. Right? So you
Okay.
get the same behavior on all versions.
Gabe is asking to be promoted.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Mhm.
Sorry.
So you would get the same behavior on all versions. Yeah.
Right. So it's kind of like you know, the part I was worrying about. Let me, got to figure out where to promote. Okay, here we go. Is the different behavior on different versions of Node is not great, right? Now, I guess we could also, yeah. Yeah, I was just thinking, like, what could we come up with that says, if you've got different different behaviors on different versions of Node, you understand and have chosen to do that.
I think that we could check if it's possible to opt in, no? So to add the options. So it's not a developer responsibility check the version of Node, but we need to do that. So so this is my opinion. So we check if the feature is available okay, checking the version of node, and then we check if the option is enabled or not. And yeah, we can give the right message in these two cases. I think. I don't know if you understand me well.
I think that's what I was thinking, that, yeah, like we would do the check, but only let symbol work or not. Like symbol would only work if you've opted in, and working would mean it would only work if we've checked, and it would, like, if we've checked and it's the right version of, and the node supports it, it'll just work. If it's a version of node where it's not supported, then you would get the same crash as before. If you've opted in. If you haven't opted in, then you would just always get the crash.
Yeah.
Or a message or something, right? So you'd get, by default, you would get consistent behavior across them, and you wouldn't create your add-on so that it worked one place but not somewhere else.
We could maybe even make it throw the fatal error that a symbol was thrown
Right,
if you don't opt in,
right.
instead of this an API create reference.
Sure,
being
yeah,
error.
yeah, like
And
that
then,
would be
and then,
better.
yeah, I think
yes.
that would work, because you would have either the opt in and get it as a string, or the not opt in, and you just get the existing behavior with a better error message.
And is it breaking at all? Like, would anybody depend? I guess in that opt-in, we would want to make it clear, but don't depend on the, like, don't depend on getting this other error message, because at some point that may go away and you'll actually get the symbol you expected. I think that's fair enough.
Right. Because if you opt in and you're using an old node version, you would be using the string comparison, and then eventually it would just work. And then
Right,
you would get a symbol.
right.
Yeah, I think if we just note it,
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
think,
so sure how many people are throwing symbols.
sure. Yeah,
So
I agree. But I think, yeah, I think if in that, like in the opt-in flag, it can be very clearly like, hey, this is, you're going to get different behavior on different versions of Node. And,
Yep.
and I guess like already that's implicit that going forward at some point, that, yeah, no, we'd have to say, and at some point we're going to flip the switch so that you're just going to get this by default.
yeah,
I guess for the people who opt in, it's not a change because it's new. It's the people who don't opt in, it will start to work differently.
right. It'll go from
Right.
crashing to working.
Right, which I think is fine, right? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. And when we turn it on by default, that'll be across the, well, yeah. Oh yeah, we can do that. We would change the add-on Node Addon API default, in which case, once this is supported in all the Node versions, then it would just work. So yeah, I think that sounds like a good story. And respects our
Yeah.
sort of, we're not going to break you kind of thing. Does that
Yeah.
sound good to everybody?
We can also run it by Legendacast next week and see what he
Yeah.
thinks. But it makes sense to me.
Should we write this down a little bit? So let's
Yeah.
see. Discussion in meeting today. 1, to handle different. So let's say aim backported to 14.x, but not 12.x2. To handle different Node.js versions, make it an opt-in, make it into Um. Yeah, it's more like. Anything else we need to capture in there for? We have enough information on how to implement.
So it's just a question then, in the documentation, we would just say that it's supported only on node 16 plus.
Well, I think it would be 14 and 16 possibly. Oops, I guess we need to backport to 16.
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm a little unsure of, is what, like, now that it's merged into master, what would be at what versions will now support this?
Right, I think, 16 should be fairly straightforward because lots of stuff still gets backported. We can probably make the case for 14, so I would guess it would be 14 and 16 once we. I think though we should make the documentation that says on more recent versions it'll do X, on older versions it'll do Y. Currently there's LTS versions that do either, so your code should be able to handle either.
Okay.
Right, and that probably handles as we move across, like as we get more it backported, if people have written their code knowing that one of the two will happen, then they should be able to, it should be able to cope anyway, right?
Right, okay. I guess on a side note, what is the document, did we update the documentation for the underlying NAPI create reference call to say that the restriction has been lifted? And
That is
like,
a good,
The documentation, I checked actually, because I looked at the PR and I realized it doesn't make any doc changes.
okay,
But
right.
the types of things that are supported are not documented to begin with. So it just says it has to be an object, but that's it. So I think the documentation is actually okay by virtue of the fact that it's just not mentioned.
Right. If we were
Though
going
I
to change
suppose-
it, we maybe would have actually needed to better quantify it, I guess. But
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I guess what one doc change that we could make is like, it says like in value, NAPI value representing the object to which we want the reference. Well, we could say object or symbol to which we want the reference. So we could, yeah, this API creates a new reference with the specified reference count to the object passed in. We could say object or symbol passed in. So I guess
right,
there is room for improvement.
right. But then if we say for symbol, I think we would have to say at what point we supported that symbol version.
Oh yeah, we have a thing for that. Like we have like a field in the NAPI reference or in the doc entry that says added in version 8.0.0, and then we could say updated in version something something.
Updated in, okay.
Yeah, we
Yes.
have a thing for updated in.
Okay,
So yeah, we could improve the API or the docs.
yeah, that's something I forgot to look for. I don't know, Jack, if you want to take a look at submitting a new PR to do that.
Sure, okay.
Okay.
right, because then if this, because then in the node add-on API docs, we could just refer to these docs a bit and say if how this hand,
Right.
right, because I think they would sort of go hand in hand. So that was my main thing.
Yeah, if you're using a version that supports symbol, then this is what'll happen
Right.
if you opt in. Otherwise, yeah, I think that all makes sense.
Okay.
Okay. So on that one, I guess, wait a sec. So this one, we should probably still leave on our agenda until we make some more progress on like fixing the Node API side, right?
The node add-on API side?
Yeah,
Yes.
sorry, no, yeah,
Mhm.
that's right, yeah, okay.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll leave that on, good discussion. The other one I added is this one, which I was hoping we could have a discussion, maybe move forward. Is this the one? Right, so this one was add a function call not the O value override, so. Right, I just thought it's been going on for a little while. I wondered if we could look at it and see if we have any other sort of comments, concerns. I think the question was that last time we looked at it, we said we should think about the performance impacts. And I wanted just to maybe just spend some time, since I think we have time to discuss that. Let me just go back to where that, oh,
Right.
it's not adding any performance overhead to existing cases, right?
Right, because I guess he adds a new call overload with, yeah, you had asked a question about that. I don't know, but he adds this value pointer, like array of values called.
Right, so that's,
And then this would be where you're asking about performance overhead or whatever, because he creates a vector from the values.
right, now
I-
for existing code, is this gonna get like the, I guess? Sorry, go ahead.
I don't think it would have an impact on existing code, because I don't think there would be a way to use this as an overload with our generics and stuff. I don't think there would ever be a way that you could call something like that.
Yeah, I think this is like a use case, right? And you know, if they use this particular overload, then it's going to have this overhead, but obviously it's worth it for somebody.
Right, if they already have a vector, or if they already have the,
It's a C style array of
right,
values.
there would need to be a conversion unless there was some more native. But yeah,
No, I don't think we can do anything. Yeah, I mean, if people are stuck with C-style arrays of an API values, then they'll have to use this overload. And I think the performance implications are limited to this overload, and you know, people will come to face them when they do, right? So if they find that this overload doesn't work too well, you know, if it has poor performance, then you know they're going to have to work backwards and just, you know, make the arguments fit the other overloads, right? So basically rework their project to not use C-style arrays of values,
right.
you know?
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Like if that's really your only choice if we can't do something that's more efficient anyway.
Yeah.
Do we have an overload for a vector? Oh, so all of our overloads use an API value, and he wants to add the node add-on API value.
Yep.
Is that a concern? Because like he's just adding, if you scroll down just a little bit to
All right.
all of the other calls
This one?
here.
Yeah.
This one. So we,
Sorry.
yeah, this one
We're
here.
down.
So we could see a little bit of all of them, you know, like all of the others are an API values. this one is the first one that we would have with a node add-on API value. Is that a concern? Because my first question, I was like, well,
Right.
do we have one with vectors of values? We do, but it's the NAPI value. So, I mean, I don't know.
I don't know why
If
we
we just
wouldn't
add
want to
this
support
one,
the C++ values though.
Yeah, I think the overload makes sense. But yeah, it incurs this performance problem. So
okay.
it is as it is.
And that's because it's an array of the C++. I think it's because like in a lot of places, if we just have the NAPI value one and it's a single instance, the C++ thing will like sort of automatically resolve to what it needs. But in the array, that doesn't work so well, right? So I
That's right,
guess
yeah.
that's where I can see. And so more naturally might be that const value star versus the NAPI value. But in the other cases, the NAPI value actually handles both.
Yeah,
But just
yeah,
for the
yeah.
array, it's not going to.
Yep. Yeah, to be honest, I don't know what an NAPI value or an NAPI : value looks like, in memory. If C++ adds any overhead to it, because if it is just the NAPI value, then an array of these things or an array of those things are just views of the same thing. So you know what I mean? Because I don't know if I don't know what it does. I don't know what C++ does in order to actually render an instance of type NAPI value. Does it fit inside a core NAPI value or not? Because we have like an implicit casting operator and so forth, but in terms of data, that's all we have. On the other hand, you can't take the pointer of an NAPI : value, I think, in which case it's probably stored somewhere and then you have to do this conversion. So I don't think it's C++ is magic enough to actually, just consider everything related to an NAPI : value to be metadata. I think it actually creates like storage and stuff, in which case this conversion is needed.
Yeah, because I can see how it like, if there's a cast from value to the C version, which I think we have, I can see how the compiler can figure that out. But I don't think we can expect it to cast from one array type to another array type.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, that would make sense. I mean, because if it did, it should already work, in fact, effectively.
True.
Which it doesn't.
Yeah.
And I think if we figured out we were wrong on that, or some new version of C++ supported that, then it would be maybe a matter of removing this and it would still work. So I don't think we're really, like, we're not getting in the way of a more efficient implementation if it was possible in the future either, so.
I'm thinking the only problem with that is that, it may not be able to deduce the type, but that doesn't mean that it's not a view. Somebody would have to run an experiment, like create an array of 2 like C++ values, and then create an array of 2 core values, and then just dump the data and see if it's the same data. That's, you can do a quick experiment just to see what the compiler does, right? Like, is the compiler able to boil down an array of C++ values to an array of core values, or does the compiler, create like actual or reserve actual memory for the C++
Do we have
values?
anything else? Any other values? Any other members on the value class?
I don't think so.
Let's see. That's in this one, right?
Yeah, yes. Mm-hmm.
So which one? What am I searching? I'm on value is what I'm looking for, right?
Yep.
Yeah. If we can get to the class definition, maybe if you do value. Oh, not the inline one.
Oh, never mind. Game over. It stores the environment inside.
It stores the
has-
environment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought I was like, maybe there's one more thing, the environment. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, so you definitely need that code.
Yeah. So then there's no way it'd be one-to-one.
Well, yeah, they
Yeah.
can't be the same implementation in memory. It's just if there was some way that the compiler, since it can convert a value to a NAPI value, could it do the same thing for an array, right? And
No, I don't think so. Yeah, no, like it cannot simply treat the array because like if
Right.
you have a yeah, no, I don't think so. I mean, you know, every second value would be the environment, you know.
yeah, I think too, like I don't think this would the PR would have been submitted because it would have just worked if it was going to work.
Yeah.
But like they were trying to call it with an array of the other things and it was probably telling them no. That's why this was suggested.
Yeah.
So I think
It seems so weird to be mixing the C style array with the C++ add-on class of value to me, doesn't it?
Well, yeah.
we allow that, but the thing is that it's like this call. So if we look at this call here, I guess maybe this.
See, like that one would make sense because the NAPI value is the underlying C type, and maybe you have a C array of that, you know? But for value, which is a C++ type, wouldn't you use a vector? But I guess, yeah, use cases are use cases, and somebody has a C style array of it. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because I think if you use like an initializer list, for example, because I was just thinking like, okay, if we
Right.
support, if we add support for a C style array of C++ values, then why not add support for a standard vector of C++ values?
right.
You know, why not add support for an initializer list of C++ values? But I said the vector we might be justified, but I think the initializer list, I think the compiler might be able to use the implicit cast to
Yes,
match to one of the.
I've definitely used an initializer list with C++ values being cast.
Yeah, maybe we should ask, since they already submitted this PR, maybe we should ask whether it's worth adding a standard vector overload as well, which basically just takes the standard vector data and feeds it into this function, right? Because it would be a super easy thing to do. You basically, the overload that takes a standard vector would simply be call this overload added in this PR with standard vector dot data comma standard vector dot size, you know, and then we would have standard vector down in, you know, with like 3 more lines of code.
I think it's worthwhile to ask.
Yeah.
I'm not sure we'd want to block this particular PR on that.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah, it can be a separate PR.
I'm kind of like hey, it's been, we've gone back and forth. It's July.
Yeah. Okay.
It'd be nice to say, as opposed to saying, so I'd be like, we talked about it today. We don't have any concerns in landing. If you can rebase. And one suggestion is like, maybe to add a standard vector override as well, either in this or a future PR.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so discuss again in node. meeting. Okay, agreed. And once rebased, press 1 plus 1 additional suggestion to add another overload to accept the vector of value objects either in this or a follow on PR. Does that sound right?
Yep.
Okay. I should say today. Okay, that one's good. I think that takes us to the end of that list. And okay, so let's go back to tracking issues. I don't see any reports of anything new there, but we could look now. So I guess we can still trending around 4 million downloads a week, which is a pretty good number.
Good.
In terms of enabled debug testing, still haven't done anything on that. In terms of creating the matrix of tested methods, Jack, did you have anything we should discuss this week on that front?
Not really. I just have to document typed thread to save functions, and I think that's everything. So, and like from here on, probably start filling out some of the blanks, but yeah.
Sounds good. Yeah, I've seen a few PRs you have active, so that's great. Deepak, at this point, is there things you wanted to discuss on the work related to being able to test individual things?
Yes, Michael. Yeah, let me share my screen.
Yeah, let me stop here.
I have a simple working like a end-to-end, filter condition that is working. We can give any filter condition, like it could be object wrap or any file name. Right. For now, I consider the filter condition as a single file name. We can add additional file name, like the capability to add additional files could be added later. But for now, it's just one single file. So what I do is I just add this as a filter condition, and it would create the build. The hello is something that I just added in to see if the build works in case something else fails. But I'll remove that. I'll clean that up. And at the end, it also runs the test after that. Right after that, yeah, it adds a test for object wrap as well. So if I change to something else, like say function, so we have the function.cc here.
Yep.
Yeah, and I just mentioned that as function, or we can change that to exact file names like function.cc. That is possible. Now it makes the build for function. Right? Instead of object wrap, it makes the build for function. The hello is just something that I added. It can be removed later. And then it right now is about to run the test for function. Right? And in case, say, just to verify that the build, so the build is also is a unit test build, right? A separate build that is done for unit test under the unit test folder. And that is what we are running the tests on. We are not running the test towards the root folder, the build in the root folder, but because we had the capability to have the relative path, That's another PR for that. But still non-merged, but I cherry pick the change here. So because of that, I'm able to run the test against another build location that's under the unit test folder. In case that we just to verify if this is the exact build we are running on, I can uncomment this, right, and then run against function, right. What I'm saying is I'm going to make a build only for the function.cc, but here I'm trying to run the test for object wrap as well. It would fail because the export symbols for object wrap is not there. So the build does not have the export symbols for object wraps, so it would fail. The test would fail. So yeah, just to verify.
In terms of the test name, I think it would be good to keep it to be the name minus the CC, because
Okay.
I could see us extending it so that you could specify a directory.
Right. Yeah, that's one more thing. Yeah, we also have the directories. I have not considered that. So I have to make sure that this is addressed as well. There are other options to come as well. Like do we want to run the entire directory tests in an entire directory? But that is a separate question. For now, if we think about only files, we have to having the capability to mention this as a directory to global object slash or something like data view slash data view.cc, right?
Right. Yeah, so that's what I'm thinking, like, with what you've got already, you can probably run an individual one in a directory, right?
That's right. Yeah. Yes.
But then, yeah, if we leave it as the name minus the extension, then if we specify a name which happens to be a directory, I guess it would be.
It would be up to the list generator, like the bit of code that generates the list of sources, right?
Right.
It would be
Yeah.
up to that to create the correct list of sources, given that is a directory, right? So that logic could be built into the thing that produces the list of sources.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the same thing would be true for the thing that generates the init this, init that, init the other thing list of functions, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But are you saying that we need the extension to be mentioned in some way?
Like
Do we need a file extension? Okay.
if you wanted to run global object delete property, what
Okay.
would you currently type in?
Yeah, so that is something I have to add on, like
Okay,
ultimately
that
it
wouldn't
would be
work.
yeah, that wouldn't work. So
Okay.
I would have it like a global object. Eventually this is how I have to have it,
Right.
like global object, right?
Right, and yeah, so I think if you had that slash the specific name, then we'd run just that one test, and if we just had global object, it should run everything in
Everything,
that
right?
subdirectory. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, that's there. Yeah, that capability of running an entire directory or fetching a file within a directory. So right now I'm assuming all the test files are under the test root.
Right. Okay.
But yeah. So but you were saying something about having a -cc, right? What is that?
Well, right. Well, like you were asking whether we should have the .cc or something, and
Right.
I'm leaning towards no, because then you can say like it's either a directory or a specific test, and actually the test has multiple pieces, but I don't know what everybody else thinks.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with you, Michael, I think.
Okay. All right. Yeah, there is some other like this PR. I have some other cleanup to do as well. Like removing all this map that I had previously. So and make use of the fact that we have the file. The file can be used to derive the export object now with our changes. So I can utilize that. All the file names I have in another PR that I raised last week. I have changed all the names to with a snake. This is a snake case. I've changed all the file names with a snake case. So it's if I go into any one of those files, it's from the snake case. I can just remove the dash and change the first letter to the capital and derive this. So
yeah.
Yeah, there's no need of this maps anymore. I have one more pull request. Michael has approved it. This is the one I cherry picked into my PR so that I'll be able to run the tests. So once this is there, then I can just what I do is I just pass this the capabilities that when I am doing a unit test. So there is a test.js under the unit test folder where I am spawning a test. There could be a better way. So what I'm doing is when I'm doing that, when I'm spawning the child process for running the specific test, I'm passing the the relative build path as the path under the unit test. So that's how it gets injected. The env variable gets injected there, and that goes into the test when the actual test file is invoked. What happens is that every test actually refers to the common run test, right? And there, since we have the build root path, it picks up from the env variable automatically. So this PR is something that if this is merged, then I can just start working on the rest of the stuff and close. Probably add the capability for the folder by next week, and probably by next. I think by our next meeting, this should be ready to be reviewed and closed.
That's looking good. That for this one, I was just waiting a little bit to let other people take a look, but unless people object, I'll probably go and plan to land that later today.
Okay, sure.
We're pretty much at time. Any questions before we move on from this?
If we can take a look at the Paracast 1065.
That's in node.js API?
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Yeah, okay, that's a good one to take a quick look at.
Yeah, for me it's good. And I can make CI to be sure that we don't land something bad. But so yeah, for me it's
yeah, I looked at it and couldn't think of any reason why it would cause problems. I think like it's within a function. Like if we look here, it's within a function where we're already making a copy of the CB. So that's std move, I think, only applies to that copy. So I couldn't think of why that would cause any problems. I don't know if anybody else has any better C++ magic knowledge that would make them worry, but
No, I can't think of anything. It looks good to me.
okay. So Nicola, if it sounded like you were going to go ahead and try it out a little bit and then land it, sounds like we're good to do that.
yeah, okay.
Okay, any other ones that we should dive into in the last minute? I guess if not, thanks for everybody's time, and we will see you in GitHub in next week.